Today on Nebraska Nightly.
An unexpected extortion case.
Plus a crash that left 4 injured.
And a hit-and-run crash.
This is Nebraska Nightly.
Live from the Don and Lorena Meyer studio at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln College of Journalism and Mass Communications, this is Nebraska Nightly.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Macy Newmeister.
And I'm Elena Tomish. Our top story today. Aubrey trial is making headlines once again, this time for extorting a prison nurse in a murder-for-hire scheme using a Lincoln woman who is now behind bars for her role. Court documents say police arrested 55-year-old Samantha Al-Rakabi over the weekend and charged her with extortion. Al-Rakabi had plans to write a book about Trail's crimes. She befriended a nurse who worked at the reception and treatment center where Trail was housed. The nurse had previously smuggled items in for Trail, and court documents report the nurse also told Trail of ongoing problems in her marriage. In response, Trail told her he had hired a hitman to kill her husband, and she had to pay him $25,000 to stop it.
In an interview with the FBI, the nurse admitted to taking the money and giving it to Al-Rakabi to avoid her husband's killing. Law enforcement believes the attack was never credible, and Al-Rakabi is due back in court next month. Lincoln police say a speeding pickup truck crashed into another vehicle, sending 4 people to the hospital overnight. The crash happened just after midnight Tuesday at 27th and Vine Streets, involving a Nissan Frontier and a Honda Civic. The pickup truck had significant damage, as did Kohl's Pharmacy, which had several broken windows, a busted out front entrance. Lincoln police say one of their officers tried to stop the truck near 27th and Nebraska Parkway, but it took off from the officer northbound on 27th. LPD says the pickup ignored a red light at 27th and Vine, striking the eastbound Civic. The 3 passengers of the Frontier and the driver of the Civic were all taken to local hospitals. 27th and Vine was shut down for roughly 6 hours, and the investigation into the crash is still ongoing.
And Lincoln police are investigating a hit-and-run crash where a driver ran into a utility pole near North 61st Street and Morrill Avenue on Sunday, knocking over a power line and leaving a car bumper behind. Police arrived to the crash at around 5:20 a.m. and photos of the crash showed the driver had left behind the front bumper of the car after the crash. Police later spoke to a woman who says she swerved to miss a dirt bike with no light, struck the utility pole, and continued home. LPD says there were no signs of alcohol or drug impairment, with no citation being issued. The crash caused $10,000 in damages to the utility pole and another $10,000 to her vehicle.
What will the future hold, and how can we stay relevant with the moving times? Business leaders and UNL students learned about these topics at the Thompson Business Forum last night. The Thompson Business Forum is a 4-night event during the academic year, with its first event last night. Prad Kahana, co-founder and CEO of Factotum and a specialist in geopolitics and globalization, led off as the first speaker last night.
Kind of returning to a world that we knew hundreds of years ago before colonialism, when Asian economies were really the center of the world demographically. That's just a structural fact today. It's not a prediction, it's a fact. It's today that Asia is more than half of global GDP. It's today that Asia is more than half the world's population.
Kahana says that the future is with young people. Millennials and Gen Z in countries that want to stay alive must learn to attract these individuals. The universal factors that influence the migration of young people most are connectivity, sustainability, and mobility, or as Kahana likes to rephrase it, fast internet and cheap beer. Kahana also says that university students are extremely important for societies.
If you look kind of, at young people and their attitudes, it starts obviously with students, right? Where students decide to go will often be where students will settle.
The forum will continue with its second event on November 14th.
And the Lincoln Airport's newest airline closed its doors after just 3 months. Redway Airlines announced 7 new destinations out of Lincoln back in March, with ticket prices as low as $49. The Nebraska exclusive airline took its inaugural flight on June 8th and 6,000 tickets were already sold to places like Nashville, Orlando, and Phoenix. Redway had its last flight on August 31st, but United Airlines is still flying out of Lincoln to Chicago, Denver, and Houston. Coming up after the break.
U.S. makes a prisoner deal with Iran.
The war continues in Ukraine.
And Biden stays focused as Hunter is indicted.
All after the break.
Don't let it happen to other Big Ten schools. Go to saveourdinos.org to learn more.
Welcome back to Nebraska Nightly.
Here's a look at this week's 7-day forecast. Warm week coming up ahead with scattered rain chances expected the next couple days before rain chances increase this weekend. Highs are going to hang around the low 80s. Next week, we're looking to stay cool off Sunday and beyond. Meteorologist Dominic Ferrero will return Friday with your weekend forecast and the Husker Game Day outlook.
5 Americans imprisoned in Iran for years are on their way home as part of a prisoner release deal with Tehran. In return, 5 Iranians held in the U.S. custody will be released back to officials in Tehran. It's the culmination of a long negotiated agreement between the two countries. Laura Aguirre has what's next as the U.S. celebrates the safe release.
5 Americans wrongfully detained in Iran for years took their first steps of freedom in Qatar Monday morning.
Our fellow citizens are free after enduring something that I think it would be difficult for any of us to imagine.
Siamak Namazi, Ahmad Shargi, Murad Tabaz, and 2 unidentified Americans were released as part of a wider deal between Iran and the U.S., one that includes unfreezing $6 billion in Iranian funds.
The regime doesn't get the money. They can request a withdrawal for humanitarian goods, agricultural products, medical supplies, food, and then we will run a process through which those goods are contracted for.
President Joe Biden celebrated the release in a statement, thanking the nations that assisted the U.S. in making the deal. His administration then announced new sanctions against Iran, designed to punish those responsible for holding Americans captive. For the families, the wait has been heart-wrenching. A lawyer for the Nizami family became emotional when recalling the moment he first heard from Siamak.
He gave me a call as soon as he came off the plane, and he said, "I'm finally free."
In a statement, Nizami said he was thankful from the bottom of his heart to those who were his voice when he couldn't speak for himself. The 5 Americans will reunite with loved ones in D.C. and be debriefed by U.S. officials.
It means that husbands and wives, fathers and children, grandparents can hug each other again.
I'm Laura Aguirre reporting.
Some Republican lawmakers like Senators John Thune and Lindsey Graham admonished the Biden administration over the detainees' release, each releasing statements saying the deal will only encourage Tehran's regime to continue taking Americans for ransom in order to fund nuclear programs and terrorist activities.
Ukrainian officials have hailed recent gains in their fight against Russia, but they are warning the situation remains difficult on the front lines as Russian assaults continue and the counteroffensive grinds along. CNN's Fred Pelican has the story.
Ground combat in a place reduced to a wasteland by months of relentless fighting. Ukrainian forces released this video saying it shows their troops advancing near Bakhmut on the Eastern Front. They're coming, cover me, the soldier says, as machine gun fire rings out and later mortars rain down. The Ukrainians say their gains here are small but important, firing heavy weapons at the Russians, including rocket barrages from combat helicopters. Kiev trying to show they have the upper hand, a presidential advisor tells me. Let's not forget that we're talking about the army that everyone was afraid of only yesterday, he says. Today, we're talking about a Ukrainian offensive in different directions. The Russians eager to show they are holding on. Russian state media releasing this video of Putin's soldiers in the ruins of Bakhmut claiming they'll hold off Ukrainian assaults. We can see them in the forest line, their trenches. We're working on those targets, he says. We shell them with our mortars. As Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky embarks on his visit to the U.S., both for the UN General Assembly but also to meet with President Biden and members of Congress, the Ukrainians are urging the U.S. to keep up its support, saying aside from the longer-range ATACMS tactical missiles to hit Russian supply lines, they urgently need a lot more artillery ammo as their forces are heavily outgunned even as they try to advance. Speaking to 60 Minutes, Zelensky highlighting the sacrifices Ukraine is making. We're defending the values of the whole world, he says, and the Ukrainian people are paying the highest price. We are truly fighting for our freedom. We are dying. A tough and slow grind on the ground as Kiev's military tries to inch forward, vowing they won't stop until they've ousted the Russians from all of Ukraine's territory. For Pletkin, CNN, Zaporizhia, Ukraine.
President Joe Biden's team says he's keeping his head focused on his job following the indictment of his son. Special counsel David Weiss filed 3 felony gun charges against Hunter Biden on Thursday for allegedly making false statements while purchasing a firearm in 2018. The indictments include possessing a firearm while addicted to drugs. The president's advisors say the elder Biden does not seem distracted by his son's legal trouble.
You don't have to take it from me. You heard directly from the president that he's focused on delivering for the American people. That's true in terms of what he's trying to get done here at home, and it's definitely true in terms of what he's trying to deliver in the way of security at the UN General Assembly in supporting Ukraine and moving forward. So that's what he's focused on. That's where his mindset is. I had the opportunity to participate in the president's daily briefing today, and he was dialed in on the key issues that we're confronting and will continue to be as we head into the New York week next week.
That week that Sullivan is referring to involves meetings at the United Nations. The president's delivered comments Friday calling on auto manufacturers to improve their offer to striking workers. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says he will not consider pardoning his son. Coming up after the break.
A look into the local Nebraska quarterback.
Husker volleyball remains undefeated.
And women's soccer opens Big Ten play.
Of the 40 million tons of plastic waste generated in the U.S. in 2021, only 5%, or 2 million tons, was recycled. Make sure you do your part in keeping Anderson Hall clean. For more information on recycling statistics, visit epa.gov today.
Welcome back. Nebraska Nightly's Trey Marler has more with sports. Trey?
From Class C to starting QB is the road child for Heinrich Harburg. The Kearney native took over the reins after the Jeff Sims injury at Colorado and was tasked with calling the signals for the home opener against Northern Illinois on Saturday. It was a 390th consecutive sellout for Memorial Stadium as the Matt Rule era kicked off on Saturday. Harburg took no problems getting him early as he finds Marcus Washington over the middle for 26 yards. Later in the drive, Harburg connects with Billy Kemp for the score. The Virginia transfer scores his first touchdown in Husker uniform to make it 7-0 Big Red. Later first half, and it was the former roommate connection of Fedoni and Harburg to extend the Husker lead. The Big Red took a 14-3 lead into the break. Fourth quarter now, and Harburg put his first career start on ice as the Huskers are in full control at 28-3. The Huskers took full control and didn't look back tonight as they cruised past Northern Illinois 35-11.
Kind of took a little bit to just soak in like how far I've come, the work that I've put in to be able to be in this situation. It was awesome.
But I've never experienced the crowd and all those things, and that was great. I thought it was awesome, and I think the crowd played a huge role today. And seeing all the kids at the tunnel walk and all those things, it's like before the game, Giff walked up to me and he said, "You know what, Coach? No matter what, this will never get old."
The Huskers will be back in action at home on Saturday against Louisiana Tech. Kickoff is set for 2:30 Central Memorial Stadium. Coming off a win at number 5, Stanford Husker volleyball returned home to the Devaney Center to play yet another ranked opponent, this time the number 21 ranked Kentucky Wildcats. It was another packed Sunday at the Bob Devaney Center, and the Huskers gave the home crowd a show early. First set, Allie Batenhorst with the kill. Huskers lead 22-12. Perfect night for volleyball on the Bob. Set point now, and it's the freshman connection of Riley and Murray as the Huskers cruise through set 1, winning 25-14. Set 2, and it's Harper Murray again with the kill as the Huskers would go on to take set 2, 25-22. Huskers in full control, up 2 sets early. Later in the fourth set, Harper Murray continues to give the Cats problems as the Big Red extend their lead to 22-18. Huskers would go on and not look back as they defeated the Wildcats, winning 3-1. After a hot start in non-conference play for the Huskers, women's soccer, they opened Big Ten play at home versus Wisconsin on Friday. It was a beautiful night on the pitch at Henry Stadium, and it was the Huskers wasting no time early as 12 minutes in, Jordan Sade crosses inside and finds who else other than the 2-time Big Ten Player of the Week, Eleanor Dale, for the goal. Huskers lead 1-0 early. Later in the first half, it's Zade again across, but the Wisconsin defense has other plans this time as the score stays to 1-0, and it would stay that way going into the break. Second half now, it's Wisconsin on the attack, but Sammy Hauk dives in to make the big play to keep the score at 1-0. Wisconsin would end up scoring a goal in the 88th minute, and this one ends in a draw with Huskers and Badgers both scoring 1 apiece. More developing news out of the Big Ten. Mel Tucker continues to be under fire as his sexual assault case continues to make headlines. Yesterday, Michigan State University provided the former head coach with a letter of their intent to fire him following the sexual assault allegations made against him in early September. The university put the coach on administrative leave without pay, then making Harlan Bennett the school's interim head coach. Pretty serious stuff at East Lansing, you guys.
Pretty crazy, but how about that Wisconsin game? Pretty exciting, even though we tied.
It tied. It was fun. They had 2 minutes left. Wisconsin scored that goal, but hey, they're still. The Open Up Big Ten play, still full season ahead. They're still looking really good. So
awesome. Well, thank you, Trey. Coming up after the break.
A haunting in Venice.
Bike ride events for students.
And a way for Huskers to find a career, all after the break.
Don't let it happen to other Big Ten schools. Go to saveourdinos.org to learn more.
Well, it's a big week here in Lincoln, and Reed Greger has all of the details. Reed?
Are you dying to see what movie to go see? Well, look no further, because when buying a movie ticket, A Haunting in Venice is worth every cent. This thrilling murder mystery featuring Michelle Yeoh, Tina Fey, and many others will have you on the edge of your seat the entire movie. This movie is out now and can be seen at a theater near you. If you have a free afternoon tomorrow and want to break out a sweat, the Outdoor and Activities Center is hosting a mountain bike ride. The ride is at Van Dorn Park at noon tomorrow, and the event is a perfect spot for beginners and experienced cyclists. The cost is $15 for students, and more information can be found on the UNL Events website. If you are interested or want to learn more about potential future careers, UNL is currently hosting a career and internship fair. The career fair allows for students to discuss with professionals in many different areas and can help them with deciding a potential future profession. The career fair can be found in the Centennial Room of the Union and will be going on throughout the week. More information can be found on UNL's website. Back to you guys at the desk.
Awesome, thank you, Reed. Well, mountain biking in Nebraska seems
That is interesting.
crazy. Yeah,
I wish I had time tomorrow at noon. I would have to go check that out.
Yes, awesome. Well, thank you for tuning into Nebraska Nightly, and you can catch us this Friday at 4:30.